you rejoin us for the last part of our discussion of space-time and architecture, which performs a little bit of a bait and switch at the end of what feels like it ought to be the conclusion.
Yes, the conclusion's like, right, I'm going to tell you all about how space, time, and architecture are going to work through the 20th century.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I've been waffling on about that for a long time. Now, let's talk about the history of urban planning.
Yeah, it turns out the real answer was urban planning all along, and that was just a warm-up. And so then we get 3 more little chapters.
Do you think this book's going to be about the journey and the friends we made along the way?
The friends we made along the way, yes. Baron Haussmann. And so, yeah, that's what we get. We're going to have 3 more little chapters about, well, they're not that little, but, they're about urbanism.
3 more little chapters, a little sliver at the back of this book, the size of, I don't know,
yeah, and what
typical novel.
And they kind of reprise the same method as the previous one. We have a historic one, which is going to tell us about the key discoveries of historical urbanism. It's a bit abbreviated compared with the art and architecture one. And then we're going to have a little bit of modern developments, and then we're going to have a bit on the present moment, which is, he calls it town planning, mostly. Like urbanism, town planning but which is, it has fewer in the way of kind of hero figures in the modern moment.
He definitely has a tension, which is that he loves heroes, but he also wants to write anonymous history without heroes in it.
Yeah.
He wants to write about things that arise through the big sweep of history.
Our key historical moments are going to be London in the first half of the 19th century.
Yeah. From the end of the 17th century to the first half of the 19th century.
Paris in the second half of the 19th century. And then Amsterdam, kind of 1900 to 1930-ish. And
then after that, the contemporary era.
I'm going to read a little quotation. If a universal attitude is needing anywhere at all in architecture, then it is in town planning. Periods incapable of arriving at a consistent outlook on the world are also incapable of carrying out the kind of town planning that goes beyond mere patchwork. And armies of specialists are no help when what is missing is a universal attitude covering the whole of life. And universality, the universal attitude is...
It's funny because he says that at the beginning. First he says that at the beginning about writing architecture history.
Yeah.
And then he says something very similar about architecture.
Yeah.
And then he says something very similar about modern art and modern architecture. And then he says it about planning.
Yeah.
But I don't think he, in the previous sections at least, really does do this really, totality of society kind of analysis.
It's kind of interesting because you wonder if this is really what he wants, but he sort of says what we need is cities where we don't just have a bunch of all different buildings not matching all along a street. We need a kind of unified scheme which brings in different functional zones, whole kind of neighbourhoods considered as a unity, building and greenery together, systems of circulation for people and traffic, infrastructure.
He likes anonymous slabs of building.
Yeah.
Because I think in his mind he's obviously got slab block. What's like slab block? Well, actually, the side of a Georgian square is quite like slab block. It's all the same all the way down.
Yeah.
Or a bit of the Palace of Versailles, or the Rue de Rivoli.
When people talk later, kind of rebel
like slab blocks.
They are a bit, yeah. When later kind of audiences kind of rebel against modernism and talk about, oh God, this is all so alienating and horrible. I mean, a lot of are made of like Le Corbusier's Plan Voisin or whatever, but there aren't that many places where people really make the case for the thing that later critics of modernism are. Who are
really
going to say,
what
we really need is big landscapes with lots and lots of abstract buildings that are all the same.
Yeah, it all needs to be the same. And then, and ideally, it needs to be like some sort of really big, sort of slightly arbitrarily shaped, same buildings in a kind of blank landscape.
Yeah, that'll be lovely.
What you should do is you should put the slab blocks in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to,
That's it. It's funny, but he does come close to it here in all this stuff about universality, the need for universality, the need to bring it all together and tie it in a bow. So we get some sort of little early moments. We get the Rue de Rivoli, which is an early kind of planned street in Paris. and we get Wren's failed post-Great Fire of London scheme and some early London squares.
Which he says fails because, not because of the difficulty of accomplishing it, not because of like the control of land or the expense, but because the English are instinctively antithetical to grand gestures.
Yes.
Which might be right.
Yes, that's a theory, isn't it? And yeah, some early squares as well. So you've got Queen Square in Bloomsbury and Grosvenor Square.
I mean, he'd already talked about Covent Garden.
And Covent Garden. Yeah, I don't have a picture of that, but yeah, that's obviously the first great kind of planned extension outside the City of London.
And I don't know how much we need to go into the sort of minutiae of the... So he does a bit of the history, which you can kind of look up elsewhere about how the early squares develop. Yeah. And then he has a description of the type in the ideal form, which he calls... I mean, he describes it using a quote, but it's basically... There's a bit of land in the middle, which is a park with a fence around it and a road around that. And then on the sides, there are continuous, anonymous... multi-storey blocks, which are terraced houses.
Yeah, and really the kind of the big analysis that he does is of the various schemes in Bloomsbury, the various squares, which are clearly all of a type. There's a very clear type of Georgian house. They're built in brick. The squares are different, but they're kind of typologically obviously the same. And
well, there's sort of two slight variations. There's the main type of square, and then there's kind of long, thin ones with a thin garden in the middle. No,
he talks with real love and admiration for these schemes, and he also talks with some foreboding about the designs of the University of London at the time, kind of gradually knocking them down to build megalomaniacal.
I mean, they were going to knock quite a lot of it down to make the Brunswick enormous.
Yeah, it wasn't really. I mean, when did Georgian London become unknockdownable? Probably not until the...
I would say quite quickly, actually. Yeah. Certainly early 60s.
Yeah. But yeah, he has a nice quote. He talks about the way that brick weathers. They're all made of this nice brown brick with these very sort of minimal kind of dressings. The sides of the...
Yes, the buildings are black, but they are made of light yellow brick.
Yeah.
I wonder how that could be.
Yes. He talks about them as plain brick, mellowed and dignified with age, like a well-smoked meerschaum pipe.
Yeah, and well-smoked is what they in fact are.
Yeah.
They don't... If you build a new one, it doesn't do that anymore because we don't burn lots of coal in the city.
No. That's where it all started to go wrong, really, isn't it?
It's interesting he's talking about these because they do work very well for the occupants of the squares. They have these very large, tall houses.
Yeah.
And then they've got a key to what he calls their pleasure gardens, which are the squares, which, did have tennis courts in them and things. But it sort of works because they're all really rich.
Yes.
The architectural challenge in designing attractive quarters of the city for very rich people to all live together in great comfort is not as difficult. I mean, these are quite successful examples of it.
Yeah.
And they're very attractive to go through.
Georgian architecture in general has been a sort of resource for later modernists to draw on, lots of people, because they have this kind of simplicity, apparent economy of means. He talks about the decisions which are made about, we paint the inside of the window reveal to kind of keep it clean, but otherwise it's just the brick, which is more kind of resistant to the rain. And then there are these little kind of classicizing little details, but they're
very stripped back.
Yeah, very minimal, very carefully. It's just the absolute... It's the most simple possible kind of drawing of the kind of classical pavilion across the wall of the square.
And it's kind of nice, elegant details, and it's always combined with lots of large trees.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me that going through these stages, he sort of talks as if what we're developing away from is the corridor... What does he call it? Like the corridor road or something, which is i.e. on both sides of the road, there are buildings, and the buildings are joined to each other. Yeah. the examples that he provides that are most successful are examples of exactly that.
Yes. The Rue Corridor.
Rue Corridor.
Yeah, which, I mean, when we move on to talking about Paris, that's, for him is the great deficiency in Baron Haussmann's planning. It's that he still relies on the road, on the street, with big buildings on either side and kind of enclosed by them. And what he loves about the squares is that they mix greenery in the city.
Yeah.
That they have the squares as well as the houses. Yeah, that they kind of seem to be rethinking what urban form can be.
He has the squares in Bloomsbury, which he analyses. Yeah. And then after he looks at them, he looks at a few other bits and pieces. And then he looks at the Nash development plans for Hyde Park.
Regent's
Park, sorry. Yeah. And actually what they did was they built a crescent and some blocks, some terraces on the edge.
Yeah.
And then they built like a whole series of villas on one corner, didn't they? But the proposal is for a load of terraces and rings sort of in the park. And he's very excited about this.
It would have been quite cool, this. I think it's interestingly... I mean, they did do a bit of this. Part of the... I mean, Regent's Park is a bit strange for the way that it has this enormous kind of enclosing wall of these very tall stucco villas.
It would have had a lot more terraces in it, including circular ones.
Yeah. Well, there are lots of, as it were, like concave circuses in Georgian urbanism, but there's not a lot of convex ones. Like the fact that it's got a terrace on the inside and also one on the outside is quite...
Yeah.
So it's like a big kind of colosseum of Georgian villas.
And it would have been quite a complete one because this would have just had one way in and one way out. And they were just sitting in the park. The thing that he's just really excited by is he just is absolutely gagging for a tower block in a parking lot.
Yes. It's all about the boldness of these big building moves. These big kind of they're like these very, very long terraces unifying the individual units of the houses into a single coherent and fully resolved form, and then just sort of drawing fun lines on the plan.
And they're very definite, like chunky, because it's these big thick houses.
Yeah,
they're very thick dark lines. It would have made the park would have been quite broken up.
Yeah, it would have been quite
different.
He
talks about this as the first development, the exciting development of organisation of outer space. By that, I think he means that the park has been chopped up into several sort of pieces by the presence of these big slabs of terrace and also the roads, the carriageways, crisscrossing the park.
So I guess this is the new road now, the Euston Road there, which also would have gone through a full circus rather than kind of the half one that's there now. Yeah, he's interesting, Nash, isn't he? I mean, his reputation is like a bit too much bon viveur and a bit too little hard work sometimes, but he is.
He had big plans. He's not an amazing architect.
He loved money.
Yeah.
And he knew how to get his hands on it. He also lived he had very strange details of his personal life as well. There's a bit where he got married to a woman, and then the next thing we hear is that he's taken her to court for producing 2 children that he said were never actually his, which she had foisted on him by deception.
Huh.
How does that happen?
Well, there we go. I liked his three goals for urban planning, which were to make as much money as possible.
Yes.
What were the other 2?
To make as much money as possible.
It's to make a healthy and nice place, and to make the transport good or something.
Yeah, I feel like he should join the Rem Koolhaas Fun Club Society, shouldn't he? Along with Ray Hood, a guy who understood what architecture is really about. Yeah, and then we get into Paris.
A big old section on Haussmann's Paris.
He absolutely loves Baron Haussmann. He's one of his real heroes.
And the strange thing is, a bit like the story is told a lot more than the design, I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we're going to sort of assume people know what this is. It's the...
So, but yes, he was, what was he? He was the prefect. He essentially did an enormous amount of demolition and reconstruction of Paris in the period.
In the middle of the 19th century, Napoleon's nephew came back into power, as emperor after he had a referendum.
Yeah.
Do we want to go back to emperors? And he wanted to do lots of complicated foreign policy, mainly wars, to make himself look a bit more Napoleonic. And he also wanted to do great plans in the city. And he got in Baron Haussmann to modernise Paris as it was growing very rapidly.
Yeah.
And that consisted of doing lots of demolitions and driving the big boulevards through the city, building a big park and knocking down a lot of it and building what's there now, which are these, I don't know how many stories tall, terraces.
Yeah, sort of 5 to 7-ish, aren't
they? Of a standardised design, which are the look of Paris. And obviously that was a rather controversial and rather dynamic and extreme thing.
Yeah.
Le Corbusier was in favour.
Yeah.
Obviously not at the time.
Yeah, like Nash, Haussmann had his kind of aims. I think his goal was to spend as much money as possible instead of making it. Yeah. Giedion uses the French term of art réseau, which I think means network, but which also sort of seems to mean like principle or aim in this. Like he basically says we need to disencumber the large buildings, i.e. separate them,
smash everything around them.
Make the city healthier.
There were bits of it that were definitely like rabbit warren slums.
Yes. Assure the public peace.
That means you need big, wide roads that you can deploy artillery on, and also cavalry.
Yeah. And
against the Parisians.
Yes. The restive, locals, and also assure access to the railways. Yes, and he talks about there was a sort of failed attempt to create a kind of Vienna-style linear park at one point on the old city walls, but which didn't happen. But yeah, the main thing that Haussmann was able to do was build a lot of...
I mean, they did a hell of a lot of this.
Yeah, they had... some of it is sort of extending existing roads, like the Rue de Rivoli or whatever, and then some of it is creating completely new ones. And they had a legal instrument where they could compulsorily purchase the land on either side of the new streets. You did get compensation, but that also was a way in which they could kind of keep the finances sort of rolling forward, because they would then get some of the money off the redevelopment, or they would be kind of involved in the...
They bought the land, they demolished the things, and they sold the land.
Yeah.
For redevelopment.
Yeah, sometimes there was a bit of money to be made there. Haussmann eventually got done for financial malfeasance. That's how he was eventually removed. I mean, he kind of characterises him as like a great financial engineer as well as a visionary planner.
It's interesting that he focuses on that so much.
Yeah.
I think he likes the idea of people getting anything done.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk that much about the design. There is a very particular design of the terraces.
Yeah.
And the conception of how you lay out the roads and end them and things is what a lot of other people... He talks a lot about how he, sets up a fund and then illegally borrows money and...
Yes, and pays people with IOUs,
sort of bribes a bank to lend him money and that sort of thing. Ultimately, the reason he could get away with that is because it was a dictatorship with some sort of very, very weak parliamentary bodies, but they were kind of rubber stamp. I mean, and he was ratified by a vote of 111 to 1 or whatever.
Yes.
Well, there's a reason why you get votes like that.
Yeah.
It's not because everyone agrees with you demolishing large chunks of the city.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that, even if people generally approve, often is divisive.
Yeah, difficult to get consensus around those sorts of things. But he does regret that it's still streets.
Yes, because the thing with the squares, the London squares, is that there's a square or a street, and there's a terrace which is a particular width, and then there's a bit of a gap, and then there's a little mews behind it. And that means that, like, London's really dark and wet, and you want lots of big windows and you need lots of natural light. Haussmann specified the facade. The facade had to be the same. The London squares also specified the facades. But what you could do whatever you wanted behind, and what they did was they had the principal rooms on the facade, and then they punched light wells to kind of make all the service space and servants' quarters work. And he thinks that's really bad because the light wells are not very nice compared to big windows.
No, indeed.
Paris has pretty high density compared to London.
I mean, crazy.
In terms of dwellings per hectare is a lot. I would think there's at least double the floor area, per ground area in this than Bloomsbury.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
Which just comes with consequences, right?
A lot of people in and a lot of activity.
I've never actually been in a flat in one of those. So
I think they're very pokey. When I occasionally see little refurb schemes on, in design media, and a lot of them are very small. That's okay. I think you can live nicely in a very small flat at a certain time of life.
Initially, ones on the big second and third floor were...
They may have been grandiose.
Pretty big, yeah. There's a sample plan of a corner one, and the flat looks pretty enormous in that. Is that like 2 flats? And then, as he says, a slum on the roof.
Yes.
Although I think even the flats in the slum on the roof now are unbelievably expensive.
And then we kind of pass over a few sort of modernist or early modernist responses to the city. We get he talks about Otto Wagner, whose architecture he loves, but whose urbanism he's not really convinced by. Vienna's
not really like that. It does have this weird... The ring is strange in Vienna. It's like you go around it and it's just one big bourgeois building after another. Okay, well, the Stock Exchange, the Opera, there's a big Beaux-Arts strip.
Yeah.
And it does have lots of tall block buildings, but they're not quite as like a big grid as that.
Yeah.
He wants slab blocks and point blocks.
Yeah, streets are over.
He wants slab blocks and point blocks in a park.
In Giedion's view. And he also talks briefly about a paper architecture scheme, which is Tony Garnier's Cité Industrielle. Is it cited? I mean, it's very obviously on the Rhone Valley, I think. We talked about him in one of the earlier ones, but actually we talked about him twice because he went to the Beaux-Arts, and we briefly looked at his student scheme.
In his youth, he didn't seem to have lacked energy when it came to smashing out drawings.
Yeah. So he worked on this this is a sort of scheme that he'd worked on continuously over a couple of decades, and which eventually was published just after the First World War, I think.
Giedion likes the fact that he drew every room in the city.
I mean, what's interesting about it considers the separation of the different functions of the city. It situates them on a kind of landscape with like strong sort of topology.
Yes, I mean, looking at it, this is an rendered aerial view, and it looks a bit like sort of Magnitogorsk or something.
Yeah, you've got this big river down here. I think this must be like Rhone Valley or something, because he was based in Lyon. There's another smaller river coming down. There's a dam up at the top, and then there's like a big industrial city, and then there's a big residential city which is sort of linear, and then which has a kind of town centre bit in the middle. And both of them are sort of...
And there's a kind of interchange block in the middle with kind of high-speed rail and...
Yeah. Oh, it's a lovely plan. I mean, I imagine it was on a very big sheet of paper, if I know anything about the preferences of the people with this sort of formation. And then, he drew loads of views, and they're kind of very interesting. So he imagines a kind of dense suburbia with lots of trees. The houses have a funny... I mean, these look like something you get in certain bits of LA or something, like slightly sort of Spanish colonial looking. And then there's also some heroic views of blast furnaces and industry and things like that.
And dams. And then there's the housing area is basically there's a big motorway down the middle. It all feels quite Soviet. Yeah. There's lots of sports facilities and a sort of shopping square. Off the big motorway, there are a fine network of roads at right angles to it, forming these long streets in a kind of ladder with circulatory things at the end, so that the houses are all on little streets, which have got a connection to a kind of medium speed road and then like a high speed road going down the middle. And it's all like high density suburbia in grids.
They're beautifully illustrated. I mean, they're like monochrome pencil drawings, sometimes with a little bit of watercolour applied. I mean, very, very Beaux-Arts. But you can see what the ambition is in. We're looking at a kind of aerial view where you're looking down the length of the
And something crucial about these, they're quite early, at least initially. He starts...
I think he kicks it off like literally in 1901 or something, but he's kind of working on it over that period.
And I guess like a lot of these things, it's difficult to tell which bit is from 1930, when the world's really changed, and which bit's from 1905. There's the first inklings, but this is very, very...
It's partly also about the like conquest of the landscape, isn't it? So you've got the road that runs over the top of this big dam, and which is then going to kind of loop around, and then you're kind of looking down the length of the residential city, which is up on the slopes of this hill, but which has been kind of terraced off, and then the industrial bit I think must be down in this valley which is below both of them, and laying out all of these elements of modern society on the landscape in different places, and having a kind of artistic vision of the way in which all of those fit together.
And he's basically in favour of this. It's funny, isn't it? Because throughout this, he's sort of pro-cities. Broadacre City is mentioned quite a few times in this.
And he's against it.
He's very, very polite and open-minded and negative about it. He believes in cities, but he's not very successful about identifying what makes them work.
So he talks about garden cities, and he's against that.
Well, he says the kind of initial idea is fine, which is that you have a whole city. He's not against a garden city with a centre. He's very against garden suburbs, which is what actually were built.
Yeah. He believes that the city is the resort of culture. Like, without cities, there isn't civilization, and he thinks that they have to be preserved in some form. And later on, he'll talk about them as if they really are in kind of peril, as if mechanization is going to sort of wipe them out, and they've got to kind of change quite drastically if they're going to survive at all.
Anyway, now we go on to the Netherlands.
We get on to the Netherlands. So Amsterdam is the sort of case study in what's now, what's kind of up to the moment, what's progressive. And he does a reading of this series of urbanistic proposals for the south of Amsterdam by H.P. Berlach and also and others, and talks about the kind of I think this is probably still true, but the city of Amsterdam has like a very sort of systematic approach to all of this, and it's very much led by the municipality in a way that isn't true in London, for example. It's a very like technocratic sort of approach. They like to have a lot of information, and they like to make a proper plan, and they keep revising the plan as every few years as their kind of understanding changes.
I.e. to build enough city for the people moving in. I found this section a bit boring.
Yeah. So there's an early plan which is sort of more or less the turn of the century, which is still has these kind of swoopy curves and looks quite kind of
that really swoopy bit's a park, isn't it?
So I think it might be more like low density building or something.
Cool.
But anyway, that one is revised quite quickly and becomes this much more sort of boulevardy. The blocks kind of harden and it gets much more boulevardy. We lose these kind of sweeping, kind of half circusy type forms and things. He talks about also how these things get built out and how they get changed. So there are these bits in the plan which are in the master plan are sort of super blocks, often sort of slightly strangely shaped blocks, but which actually, as built out, end up being built out as slabs. And the slab kind of very much enters the Netherlandish mass housing vocabulary in the 20s and 30s, and it's very systematic. It's kind of continuous. In the earlier parts, they are still building along streets with these kind of big unified brick facades with lots of actually rather charming sort of slightly expressionisty details and things. Although what he particularly likes are the big uninterrupted surfaces, slabs and things like that.
I got the feeling the thing that he really likes, which I think a lot of people like about this, is that about this approach to planning, is that they do it.
Yeah.
There is planning.
Yeah.
The state decides we're going to build these sort of buildings here and provide the necessary amenities, and then they do it. But I didn't see anything sort of much more exciting than that.
No, it's big slabs, big surfaces, coordination, and a kind of a single vision, basically. Is what's exciting about it. Finally, we get a little bit into, what's the world to come? And
he goes to America, and what does he find there? He finds something very exciting.
Parkways, motorways in the city.
Is this actually a real thing?
Well, he has these very they must be like very early photos.
The description is, I'm going to describe what he describes, at least as I understood it.
Yeah.
Which is that America in the 30s invents a new form.
Yeah.
Of public space, and that is a large road with a central reservation planted, and on either side of the road is parkland, which must be undisturbed, and that the purpose of the road, and the road kind of undulates naturally through an environment, and the purpose of the road isn't so much to go anywhere as to travel up and down in a kind of pleasurable park for your car.
Yes.
And that there'll be nothing, everything will be taken off the road onto the side, so that anything like petrol stations or places to stop or any kind of building will be away from this road, which is this continuous park, as in, like Hyde Park for cars. And enjoy pleasure driving up and down this motorway and in its undulating, gorgeous nature.
Yes, they humanise the highway by carefully following and utilising the terrain. He's fallen in love with driving, hasn't he? Is
that something that, surely that something like that doesn't exist now, but is that something that ever existed?
Air views may show the great sweep of the highway, the beauty of its alignment, the graceful sequence of its curves, but only at the wheel of the automobile can one feel what it really means, the liberation from unexpected light signals and cross-traffic, the freedom of uninterrupted forward motion, without the inhuman pressure of the straight-line layout pushing one on to dangerous speeds. Confidence is given to the driver by the way in which the road fits the earth between its sloping sides, and by the protection which the dividing green and wooded strips afford against the hazards of contrary traffic. Riding up and down the long sweeping grades produces an exhilarating dual feeling, one of being connected with the soil and yet hovering just above it. A feeling which is like nothing else so much as sliding swiftly on skis through untouched snow down the sides of high mountains.
I found that a really strange bit of utopian prose.
Yeah, it's a sort of it's a kind of suddenly like lapses into the kind of the dreamlike
Shearbart talking about
language of desire,
vacuum cleaners or whatever.
Yeah. He talks at the start of the chapter about the city is at a turning point, and we've got unless it changes, it's going to perish in the face of the machine.
What he means by that is everyone's going to move out and we're going to demolish it.
Yeah.
It's one of the potential fates.
Can the unworkable disorder of today's giant cities be eliminated without destroying the institution itself? And the first thing to do is to abolish the Rue Corridor with its rigid lines of buildings. Because he started off the book saying, oh God, why are we demolishing all these lovely buildings? Oh no,
why? We're imperiling the historic centres of these cities.
Yeah, no, that can't
What
be
we
good.
need is to drive enormous motorways through them.
Yeah, which go whooshing.
And then demolish
where
everything.
One can go whooshing along, I mean, there are these... that is the Randall's Island Cloverleaf in New York, and that's the Grand Central Parkway intersection, which they're kind of lovingly depicted in these aerial photos and described as like the great sculptural works of the... This is him in his most like manifesto mode, which he's not in that much, and which he does kind of... Even within this chapter, he starts backsliding.
Yeah, he's like, these are amazing. It's going to be a bit difficult to put these big roads through the middle of town.
Actually, it's a bit hard to be sure if this is going to work.
Where are we going to put the city if we put all these roads up and down through it?
Yeah, it's mostly 2 thumbs up, I think, for the big motorway.
He's like, this is America's innovation.
Yeah, and we're going to have... If we don't do it, the city will perish, I think, is broadly the argument. Space-time and planning, too, is slabs in the park, basically.
Yeah.
Towers in the park, slabs in the park. Yeah, we kind of go back in time a little bit. That's this early Dutch slab by a guy called Van Tyen. And there's some kind of early Gropius schemes, Corbusier, and some kind of buildings in Chicago and New York. It's something which he's been talking about throughout, is that the direction of modern town planning is towards buildings surrounded by greenery, but sort of still in the city, not like a garden city. It's still a city, but somehow we're not putting buildings on streets anymore. We're having them directly in connection with parkland. I don't know that I could tell you exactly what the big argument is, because we quite quickly get into describing the examples, and it kind of, it goes into the weeds. Having promised that this is actually where space-time is really going to resolve, actually it kind of doesn't quite come together either.
And then immediately after that, he's on to something completely different, which is the Rockefeller Center.
Yeah, which is what he's called...
Which is not exactly
civic centres.
A park, is it?
Yeah. So the third idea about the future of the city is civic centres, which are going to be big... He doesn't quite say megastructures, but it is like a whole quarter of the city conceived of as one, and building these really, really big civic spaces made up of lots and lots of buildings, but they're coordinated and they're all one big thing. So Rockefeller Center has all of these different buildings, which are all kind of one style.
From one side of the spread, he's got those tall, thin towers in Bologna.
Yeah.
Which, could be like the ones from San Gimignano.
Yeah.
And he says, these you can immediately understand. And then he has the Rockefeller Center, and he's got like a collage of lots of different views of it. And he says, the Rockefeller Center, unlike the medieval Italian city, you cannot understand instantly. You have to experience through space-time by going around it.
I think the Rockefeller Center is quite banal, isn't it? I mean...
And the medieval Italian city is quite complicated.
Yeah, it's sort of strange and organic and nothing lines up.
But that's his, he has this weird idea that he never quite manages to make stick, which is that the thing about modern architecture is it's three-dimensional and consequently has multiple sides, unlike historic architecture. And I think you could go historic architecture is like facade architecture maybe, but then having as your example medieval Italian city towers surely it should be like some one-fronted Baroque palace in a city or something.
Yes, I think. I guess. There's
a funny thing with the montage as well. All of the images of it are the same.
Yeah, I guess this is his photo montage, right?
Maybe.
Getting his.
Maybe. Do you think? I mean, I thought one of the weaknesses of this is it would be great if he could draw, and then he would be able to draw what he means, instead of relying on other people's images.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was by him.
Yeah, but I'm not going to. Actually, I can't bother to look. It doesn't have a credit.
He pairs it with a high-speed kind of multi-exposure photo of someone swinging a golf club.
Which is also space-time.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, this is definitely the most speculative, isn't it? We're going to need a new city, a new centre to the new city.
Yeah. And it's going to be kind of megastructural.
Yeah.
The properties of it will be multiple forms, but again, the same repeating units, which is something he's liked throughout. Do you remember what he actually says right at the end?
Yeah, no, uncertainty reigns. All we have been able to do has been to trace incompletely in fragments an image of our period. Perhaps at the present stage of our development, this is all that is possible. Thus, to touch here and there at isolated points what is going on under the surface. Certainly to have aspired to any exhaustive or comprehensive treatment would have been futile. Oh dear. It's quite a lot of book, nevertheless. The time for that is not yet.
Yeah, whatever, 2 million words later.
Yeah. Well, he has a bit about where he says modern physicists, when they attack the Newtonian system, called this uncertainty between cause and effect semi-causality. This semi-causality prevails as well in the historical as well as the subatomic. There are no definite rules, no simple causality, which determines the reciprocal dependence between political events and those human activities which explore thought and feeling. The irrational interferes. To draw these flexible relationships too tight would be to plunge us into inextricable disorder. It's possible that even in the same political system at the same time and in the same country to produce works full of power to invigorate the future and along with them works of confusion and decadence. For example, during the 80s and 90s, investment and land speculators erected the great office buildings and department stores of Chicago at the same time, under the same economic conditions. The same category of buildings in New York became the plague spot of American architecture. He basically makes the case that we don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And we don't really know what's going on with architecture theory either.
Yeah.
Which is sort of true. Like, we've read quite a lot of architecture theory for this podcast.
Yeah.
And a certain amount not for it. And I think one of our conclusions was it doesn't really exist and is impossible.
He sort of asks, why is life so disordered? Why? And a part of that is he makes the case that there's too much information. There's too much going on.
I would just go, why is life so disordered? Have you met people?
Yeah. He has this little quote where he says, factual knowledge has not been reabsorbed and humanized by feeling, by which he means like artistic feeling. He's trying to equivocate a bit, because I think he reaches this point in the work knowing that he hasn't quite justified the whole thesis of space-time.
He can't go back. He's gone too far.
But still wanting to make the case that we desperately need architects and artists to pull it all together and to articulate what's really going on. For him, it's just axiomatic that that's what creativity does, that this kind of great creative work gives voice to the zeitgeist, to to the spirit of the age.
It reminded me a bit of, Rossi's second book was called Scientific Autobiography.
Oh yeah.
He means scientific like Giedion means space-time.
Yeah.
He means
kind of
emotional.
Yes.
In a way, I wonder if the thing that, he hears like someone talking about quantum physics or whatever, and he feels it's like really profound and emotionally touching. That, yeah, really the world is like that. Really everything is kind of fluid. Things aren't quite what they seem.
Yeah.
That like strikes an emotional chord with him. And so he thinks, things aren't what they seem and are emotional.
Yeah.
That's what we need in architecture for this modern age.
Yeah. He's attempting a kind of a great synthesis, and at the same time saying, well, I think actually this may not be possible.
He's attempting a great synthesis, but he's never willing to talk complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And so can't do it.
Yes.
He's also not willing to say things that are really banal, and often the things that you can say are banal.
Yeah, it is caught between those poles of like manifesto and history. He just gets a bit too into the details.
Well, there's history, but there's two different sorts of manifesto, isn't there? There's like how it is, and how it should be, or how I do it, and then there's describing the thing, and he doesn't kind of do either of those manifesto-y things that much, really. But he sort of says he's going to. But it's okay to fail if you try to do something impossible.
Yeah, yeah.
And one thing he does deliver is there's an awful lot of book.
Science and art, insofar as they explore the unknown or anticipate the future, reflect the real level, the true being of our age. They are the moral forces. They will speak for us to later generations when the horror of the outer world of the present has faded away.
Maybe. I don't know. I think
when
people think about the mid-20th century, they think about some of the horrible stuff, actually, as well as
yes,
as well as science and art.
Yes, lovely undulating ceiling curves and yes, exciting plywood chairs.
I guess we will talk about mechanisation takes command in the bonus. I mean, it has the same thing where on the surface, like if you just sort of skim it, it seems really moody and evocative and weird. Then you get into the grills, and he's just going on at great length about early 19th century sofa design.
And where the dark places it would take us in the
then
the
it's like
century.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about how the body interacts with mechanization. Here are some lovely soft armchairs, and here is a machine for slaughtering and skinning pigs, and here is a device for electrocuting frogs and turning them into electrical communication device. Look, it's completely controlled by the electricity.
Well,
and here are some more lovely chairs.
That'll be on the bonus. So, if you're a subscriber on our Patreon, we'll see you on there.
Well, thank you very much for listening, and we'll do something different.
Yeah, next time something different. Well, see you on the next one, wherever that is.
Night night.